Have you ever thought about what you would do to save your life? How far would you go? What sacrifices would you make? I found out the answer to that question when I was 32 years old. And the answer was I would do anything. My name is Rachel, and for 10 years I didn't exist. To anyone who knew my name before I was dead. My funeral happened. My family cried over my casket. My friends shared memories. But I was alive. Living a completely different life in a different place with a different identity. If you're here because you're living something impossible, if you're feeling trapped in a situation you can't escape, please subscribe to this channel. Turn on notifications. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. Because this story is about survival. It's about courage. It's about making impossible choices. Now let's go back to where it all began. I grew up in a family that seemed perfect. My father was a lawyer. My mother was a teacher. We had a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood. We had security. We had love. Or at least that's what I thought. When I turned 25, I started dating a man named Marcus. He was charismatic, intelligent, successful. Everything girls dream of finding. First, he was perfect. He took me to fancy dinners, bought flowers, told me he loved me every day. But after a few months, something changed. Marcus became possessive. He didn't want me going out with my friends. He wanted to know where I was all the time. He checked my phone. He read my messages. When I asked why, he would say, "It's because I love you, Rachel. I don't want you to leave me." He started criticizing how I dressed. My hair. My body. "You'd be prettier if. Why don't you try?" It was constant. And I was so in love that I accepted it. I changed my wardrobe. I cut my hair. I lost weight. My friends started to notice. They asked if I was okay. My mother called worried. But I kept insisting everything was fine. That Marcus was just protective. That he cared about me. Slowly, Marcus isolated me. My friends disappeared. My family was kept at a distance. It was just Rachel and Marcus. When I was 28, Marcus changed again. He started drinking. He came home and exploded over anything. If dinner wasn't ready, if I had talked to a coworker, if I simply looked the wrong way. And then the violence started. The first time he hit me because I bought the wrong type of milk. He threw me to the kitchen floor. My face hit the refrigerator door. When I woke up, he was crying. He apologized. He said it was the last time. That he would never do it again. I believed him. Because I loved him. Because I thought he had changed. But he hadn't. The violence became regular. Sometimes it was physical. Sometimes it was psychological. He called me ugly. Stupid. Worthless. "No one else is going to want you," he would say. "You're lucky to have me." And I started to believe it. My self-esteem was completely destroyed. I saw a woman in the mirror that I didn't recognize. I tried to leave him several times. But every time I tried, he threatened to kill himself. He would cut himself. He would run to the car and drive recklessly. And I would come back. Because I didn't want him to hurt himself. I spent 7 years in that cycle. 7 years of abuse. 7 years of fear. 7 years of losing myself completely. If you're in an abusive situation, please leave a comment. Or seek help. There are resources. There are people who care. You're not alone. When I was 32, something changed. Marcus had drunk more than usual. He was furious about something trivial. I had left a dish in the sink. He pulled me by my hair. My head hit the wall. I felt warm blood running down my face. And then he grabbed a knife. He pointed it at me and said, "I'm going to kill you, Rachel. You leave me and I'll kill you." In that moment, something broke inside me. It wasn't just fear. It was clarity. Crystal clear. If I didn't get out of that situation, I would die. I had two options: leave him and risk my life. Or stay and certainly die. There was a third option, I thought. An option that seemed impossible. An option that would mean leaving everything behind. I could disappear. I spent the next few weeks planning. Secretly. While Marcus slept, I researched. Fake identities. Documents. Ways to leave false trails. I told my best friend, Sarah. She was the only person who knew the extent of the abuse. She had begged me to leave him for years. "You can come stay with me," she said. "We can leave the country. We can disappear together." But I knew that if I simply disappeared, Marcus would look for me. He would find me. Because he was obsessed. So I needed him to think I was dead. I created a plan. I would need help. I told my mother everything. She cried. She blamed herself. But she helped. With the help of a friend who worked at a hospital, we got documents. Falsified medical records. A fake death certificate. I created scenes. Left clues. Wrote a note of suicide without saying it was suicide. Just left it vague. Then I created an accident. A car went off a cliff near a remote road. The car was similar to mine. Inside it were remains that were identified as my body. It took weeks, but finally they declared my body as found. Severely burned. Unrecognizable. But with my ID in the wallet. My funeral was real. My mother really cried. My father really suffered. My friends really mourned. And I was in a hotel 500 kilometers away watching my own funeral via live stream, with a brand new identity. The first months were the worst. I had to change my accent. My walk. My personality. Everything about who I was had to disappear. I lived in constant fear. Fear of being discovered. Fear of Marcus finding out I was alive. Fear of making a mistake. I started working as a waitress at a small restaurant. I lived in a rental apartment in the poorest neighborhood of the city. I lived under the radar. I spent years like that. Living a ghost life. Unable to maintain real friendships because any close relationship would mean explaining who I was. And I couldn't do that. My relationship with my mother was through encrypted conversations. She could never hug me. Never tell me she loved me in public. Slowly I started to heal. Without Marcus abusing me, without fear of being hurt, I started to find myself again. I started seeing a therapist, with a fake name. I started reading. I started dreaming again. After 5 years of disappearing, I found out that Marcus had been arrested. He had murdered another woman. A woman who hadn't been able to escape like I had. When I found out, I cried. I cried for the woman he killed. I cried because I had been one of the lucky ones. But I still couldn't leave my hiding place. Because even in prison he had friends. Friends who visited him. Friends who could look for me if they knew I was alive. So I remained dead. After 10 years, something changed again. Marcus died. A heart attack in prison at age 50. I was working as a barista when I found out. A customer was reading a newspaper that mentioned the death of a prisoner. I recognized the name. In that moment, it felt like a chain had been removed from my neck. I could live again. I told my mother. She cried. She gathered the necessary documentation. And slowly we began the process of bringing me back to life. It was complicated. Legally I was dead. I had to work with lawyers to explain the situation. I had to share my secret with people who helped me resurrect. The police investigated. They asked how the accident had happened. How my body had disappeared. How I had survived 10 years. Some officers wanted to charge me with fraud. But my mother and my lawyers argued that I had acted in self-defense. That I had done what I needed to do to survive. Eventually the case was closed. Officially I was found 10 years later living under a pseudonym. Officially the story was that I had fled an abuser and lived incognito to protect my life. It wasn't the whole truth. But it was true enough. Today, 5 years after I resurrected, I'm relearning how to be Rachel. I have a real life now. A real job. Real friends who know the truth and love me anyway. I'm in therapy rebuilding my self-esteem. I'm relearning how to trust people. My mother and I have the relationship we had before. She can hug me publicly now. She can call me by my real name. My old friends, the ones who knew me before Marcus, some of them I reconnected with. It wasn't easy explaining, but many of them understood. There are scars. There's trauma. There are nights when I wake up in panic thinking Marcus found me. But I'm alive. I didn't just survive, I thrived. And if anyone is listening and is in an abusive situation, I want you to know. You are stronger than you think. You deserve a safe life. You deserve to be happy. If you need to disappear, do it. If you need to leave everything behind, leave. Your life is worth more than any possession, any relationship, any fear of the unknown. You can survive. You can be free. People, if this story touched you, if you're living something impossible, please leave a like and subscribe to this channel. In the comments, tell me, do you think I did the right thing? Would you have done the same? Tell me where you're watching from. And if you're in danger, please seek help. There are hotlines. There are shelters. There are people who care. You're not alone. Until the next video.